Oh, sorry, I just got back from my lunch break. It was to die for. Salad. It was a salad. It was a good salad. Blood curdling good salad. Hello, my loves. You're looking delicious. In what world would I ever say that to anyone? I'm so glad you can make it to Transylvania for this special occasion just to get some book recommendations. You must be desperate. I have a big old stack of books ready to be recommended that you better read. Try to make yourself comfortable because these books are to die for. All right, we're gonna start with one that I really want to read soon, and that is White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. One of you guys actually recommended this to me last year, and thank you so much. This is a slow building, neo-gothic, profoundly chilling. So essentially this one is set in Dover in the UK, and we follow this house that starts to do amazingly what houses should not do, and that's like come alive, eat people, have feelings, and more than feelings, hatred towards certain people. But we also follow the family that lives inside, which is the Silver family. So we mainly follow Miranda, and when her mother Lily passes away, Miranda starts to suffer some strange ailments. An eating disorder starves her, she starts to hear voices, the like. So she's going through all of this, but then she brings someone home to the house, which has since been converted into a bed and breakfast. But then the bed and breakfast just goes absolutely berserk, does not behave like any good bed and breakfast should, and tries to do some hostile things towards certain people in the house. So I love it. It's a good old gothic haunted house book, but there's actually so much more than that. It's also a meditation on race, nationality, and family legacies, and I'm so excited to get to this one, so highly recommend picking this up. I've heard nothing but good, great, amazing things about that, so that is White is for Witching. Next up, we've got a classic horror. We have The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. I read this a very long time ago. I think this was technically one of the first horror books I ever read. I remember being vaguely frightened by a book, and it's usually books don't really scare me, it's more movies, and I have also seen the movie The Woman in Black, which came out a few years ago with like Daniel Radcliffe and stuff. That movie looks really nice, wasn't the scariest. This one starts off when a man has to go to this old spooky house to essentially gather it up, put the affairs in order because the people who were living there died and now they have to sell the house. So he's kind of the salesman or whatever, young solicitor. So he goes over there on this journey, but this house is separated from like the rest of the town or the city by this causeway that floods, and so you can really only access the house at certain times of day, and it's this extremely isolated spooky house that no one wants to go to, but Arthur, our protagonist, has to stay there to clean it up, figure it out, clean this old rubbish landfill house up and try to sell it. But while he's there, he finds out that it is haunted by a woman and he doesn't know what she wants. It might be revenge. It might be revenge. She might want a cold dish. I think this is a nice short one, and then you can also like watch the movie afterwards to get away from the spookiness a little bit and to give you some romance. I feel like I would really enjoy Halloween romance books, but I actually haven't read too many. But one of the book of the month picks for October is The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling, which sounds like it checks off all of the boxes. We follow a witch. She is an actual witch, although this is set in a contemporary setting, and she has cursed the boy who broke her heart. Little does she ever expect to see him again. Little does she ever expect the curse to work, because she like does it with like a Bath and Body Works candle or something like that. I think the strongest thing you're gonna give him is a headache. He returns back into her small town in time for Halloween and spooky season, and she finds out that the curse she worked upon him is actually working a little bit too well, because there's like creepy things that are following him around trying to kill him, and then eventually the things like dolls and other weird crazy things start to terrorize the town where they live, and so they have to work together, apparently fight their off the charts. It's off the charts. It's not on the charts chemistry, and protect the town together. So I'm excited. If I can find an audiobook of this, 100% gonna read it this month. All right, this one I have to recommend. I'm currently reading this, and that is Thus Were Their Faces by Silvina Ocampo. Oh my gosh, if you want something a little bit disconnected. If you also want to hop onto a book club, this is for the Dark Academics book club. We're reading this for October and November. This is my pick for the book club, so I'm incredibly, I hope it's a good one is what I'm saying. I don't want to let anyone down, but this one was also a recommendation from a bunch of people in the comments, so thank you so much. But this is a collection of Silvina Ocampo's shorter fiction, selections from her work, her body of fiction, also short stories and stuff like that, and they all focus on the horror of everyday life. They are intensely gross, grotesque, horrific, and like I said, those like small little horrors that invade your life every day that you might not notice or might not think about too much. This book will call them out for you and have you go, oh, that's something I think is normal. When I actually look at it, that's actually very disturbing and upsetting. So if you want something like that to kind of come out and scream at you and have you be a little bit unsettled in a very real way, I think this is amazing. I've been loving it so far. They're also very gothic and ghostly, like I said, so perfect. I'm really liking this so far. So that is Thus Were Their Faces. This is one of my favorite authors, and I cannot wait to read this one too, because this is Slate House by David Mitchell. This is another haunted house, spooky house, architecture that has some ghosts in the nooks and crannies and cracks. But essentially this is about this place that people go into, and once every 9 years, Slate House like takes another victim, like it lures someone in. And like houses with thoughts and feelings like that is just absolutely frightening to me, that architecture can do these things. And like, in a sense, it is kind of a real quality sometimes to buildings, I think, that can like lure you in and make you want to come inside, but it chooses to do so every 9 years. It needs another victim for some reason or other. And when you enter, I guess you find all the people that it's kind of taken, but when you go inside, it's like you think it's amazing, you don't want to leave, you're having a great time, but then you go to leave and then you can't leave. You cannot get out. That's all I know. All I know is that you can't get out of Slate House, and it just sounds so creepy. It's also a nice short one. David Mitchell has not failed yet to impress me, so I cannot wait to see his take on like a haunted house, because Another fun spooky one is Marina, I believe. This was a gift from one of you guys, thank you so much. But this one is set in Barcelona, and we follow our protagonist who goes missing from his boarding school, and everyone is like, where did he go? And it turns out he got swept away by this woman named Marina, who took him on a date to a graveyard. Gotta write that one down. In this graveyard, they witness together this weird ritual that goes on, and then from that point onwards, every Sunday of the month, I think, a coach appears, a woman descends. Him and Marina get on board this coach and they go on an adventure. It's also set in the 80s, but that's all I know, is that it's just this weird gothic novel where you get on this like ghostly coach and you go somewhere. It takes you somewhere. It's like a ghostly Uber driver kind of thing. So that is Marina. This is the last best book that I read. I gave it 5 stars and went on my forever favorite shelf. I'm seriously so impressed with this book. I think if there's one book I want to shout at you to read the most in this video, it is the Iliac Crest by Cristina Rivera Garza. This was just absolutely phenomenal. I don't even know what I want to tell you about this book other than to please go read it. Are we making eye contact right now? Read it. So this one is set on a dark and stormy night. There's a person. They are a person. I'm almost 100% sure that they're a person. And 2 people knock on this person's door in the middle of the night. One is an ex-girlfriend and one is a famous Mexican writer, Amparo de Villa, who technically I think should be like dead when this novel takes place, but apparently she's not. And so these 2 women, distinctly 2 women people, 2 people who are women. Do you see what this book has done to me? They go into this person's house and they're like, hey, guess what? We know your secret. We know that you're actually a woman. On top of this, our protagonist also works at this kind of like sanatorium, hospital, asylum place where essentially people and patients just go to die. They kind of get sent to this remote corner of the world because it's kind of set like on a cliff overlooking the ocean. They're essentially in the middle of nowhere, like it's so isolated, there's so much solitude. But they work at this hospital where people are just dying, and essentially healthcare is not Like the care is just taken right out, and so is the health. There's no healthcare to be had here. People just go there to die. This is also a novel about borders. There's a lot of metaphors for the US-Mexico border in this novel, as well as the femicides that occur predominantly along that border over years that it's been happening. There's also so much about language and the way that gender is inserted into language, like especially in Spanish, because as you can imagine, this was translated by Sarah Booker into English, and Spanish and French and Italian and a whole bunch of Romance languages, of course, are like very gendered themselves. Everything is gendered, whereas in English, you know, we don't have that. But I still think the translation did do a pretty good job of letting you like try to see, if you don't speak Spanish, if you don't speak those languages, like how those languages can affect gender, and even how English can, of course. And I think it was just phenomenal. It was wonderful. It was crazy. It's like a mystery. It's this meditation on crime and healthcare and borders, literally everything. And this book is just amazing. So it's also extremely spooky, extremely unsettling. You will be unsettled, like you just threw lots and lots of rocks into a bog and the bog was like cloudy water. That's how unsettled you will be. Do yourself a favor. Do everyone a favor. Read it. Then we have a little bit of a cult classic with Perfume by Patrick Suskind. This is a German book about Paris. We're set in 18th century Paris, and we follow this baby who is born, and this baby cannot be smelled. He cannot be witnessed via scent, via your nose. You can't snort this baby. Why would I say that? But even though he cannot be smelled, he has the best sense of smell. And so he kind of grows up obsessed with these things because it's something he doesn't have, but it's something he is able to see that others have and that other things have. And so when he grows up, he becomes apprenticed to this like perfume maker, and then he becomes obsessed with like creating the perfect perfume. Unfortunately, that leads him to murder and stuff like that. I've heard this is absolutely incredible. I know it's sometimes, I think, required reading in Germany. I think a few people have said that. This has been on my TBR for a long time. I haven't heard anyone say a bad thing about it. They just say it's strange, it's grotesque, it's wonderful. So I would highly, highly recommend this one. Because I'm pretty sure what he wants to do is like bottle the scent of a person, like get perfume that smells like a person. All right, we're gonna descend into some classics of horror, the gothic, just everything. And this first one I have to recommend because it is the Phantom of the Opera. And this edition has a foreword written by me. It's me. I wrote the foreword for this edition, which is the Augmented Classics edition, and then as you can see, if you like, you know, scan it with your phone, the cover comes to life and yells at you and screams at you, and like a chandelier drops, and it's fantastic. But The Phantom of the Opera is one of my favorite books of all time. It was wonderful to write this foreword, and I would 100% recommend this to anyone. For Halloween, for October, I got to reread this again last year for like the upteenth time, and it was just so wonderful coming back to it. It's a story of the opera ghost who lives in the bowels of the Paris Opera. It's amazing. There's so many things in this book. I think this book is uproariously funny. Like, it's just so hilarious to me, but more than that, I think it's just so impressive. I love getting lost like in the hallways of the opera house because this book like takes your hand and like grabs you and throws you into the wall, throws you into the performance, throws you into the underground lake, drops a chandelier on your head. But if you'd like to get this edition, you can have a foreword where I say things about it, so I will link this one in the description. But I seriously do think this is like the perfect time to read The Phantom of the Opera. And I just love it endlessly. I'm actually on the hunt right now just to read retellings of it, so if anyone has any recommendations, I'd like to film a whole video about it. It doesn't have to be like romance specific retellings or anything like that, just any iteration of Phantom of the Opera I'm so down for. Phantom by Susan Kay is also one of my favorite books, so I do know of that one, which I love seeing people recommend because I'm like, yes, that is a fantastic book. So anyway, love it. Another classic we need to talk about is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I am so, it is time. It is time for me to do a reread of this. I think I first read this, maybe it was in high school or something like that. I think I would just enjoy it so much more now, especially because I would like to do a little bit of a study throughout the Victorian period of books like Phantom of the Opera, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Island of Dr. Moreau, like these gothic stories about monsters and villains and potentially a little bit of like weird science and stuff like that. But You've probably heard of this one. I got first exposed to this because every Halloween on YTV, I didn't have the Disney Channel growing up, I only had YTV, but they would do like the Alvin and the Chipmunks cartoon where they would put on like a Halloween remake, but it was Alvin and the Chipmunks, and so they did Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I remember like I got nightmares from that Alvin and the Chipmunks remake. I was very, very scared, and that was like my first memory of it. It's just that like, you know, vivid lime green bubbling juice of death in a flask in a science room, and it was great. But anyway, this follows a man who is split between two people, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. One is of a character with, you know, good intentions, he's a pretty decent dude, and the other is villainously evil, and he splits between these two personalities, or these two different people. This is also a book where it's actually quite hard to tell what is actually happening, and I love the invitation for interpretation. It extends you an invitation to interpretation. I would love to reread this. I might pick up an audiobook because it's also super short. This one has additions with other stories in it, but that is that one. I have this fantasy book. I just wanted to give like a range of different things if you're interested in picking up different ones for Halloween, but this is Titus Grown by Mervyn Peake. I had not heard of this until someone sent this my way and threw it in my PO box, and they were like, you're gonna like this. Maybe that wasn't a good reenactment of what actually happened. It sounds like I really would, because this is, I think it's a trilogy. And there is a castle, Gormenghast Castle, Castle Gormenghast. Love that name. And we have our character Titus, who is born, but he's born into this weird atmosphere. Well, first he's born in a castle. That sounds pretty great. But he's born into this castle where like all events, everything that goes on inside this place is ruled by these rules that no one can determine like what they are, why they are put down. And so he's born and he's like, well, hey, what's going on here? Like, why are these things happening? And everyone's like, we don't really know. This castle just seems to have something weird going on inside it where it's just predetermined by complex rituals. But Titus is also heir to be Lord Sepulgrave of the castle when he grows up. So he makes it his mission to figure out just what the heck this castle is doing. Why is it being weird? The description is amazing. It says it's an extravagant epic about a labyrinthine castle populated with conniving Dickensian grotesques, and it's the true fantasy classic of our time. I'm excited. I'm so excited. So that is Titus Grown. I had to put Wuthering Heights on here too, by Emily Bronte, more as like a push to myself to read this again, because I was obsessed with Wuthering Heights in high school. Like, I went through a huge Wuthering Heights fan and I haven't touched it. Wait, what did I just say? I went through a Wuthering Heights fan. I went through a huge Wuthering Heights phase and then I never picked it up ever again, and I'm like, why? Like, I would enjoy it so much more now. I'm a lot smarter, I hope, now than I was in high school, and I would just love it, love it, love it. And besides that, there's Moors, the mist, the fog, the ghosts, Heathcliff. This is a pretty tragic, scary, toxic love story between Catherine and Heathcliff. It follows more generations than that, but they are pretty much doomed. They're so doomed that their love story invites ghosts in, and it's just amazing. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. I cannot wait to just read it and like annotate it. I started reading this at Christmas and then for some reason I put it down. But this is the very nice Penguin English Library edition, so maybe I'll actually pick it up again this October. All right, this one is actually on my October TBR, like for sure. I put it in a nice little stack in my room where I'm currently holding up all of my inspiration, and that's Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. I didn't realize this novel was just paced like this. Like, if you can tell, there's absolutely no breaks. I'm not sure if it's exactly stream of consciousness, I don't think so, but this one is another book from Mexico, and it's set in a small Mexican village where all we know is that there was a witch in the village, but now the witch is dead. You follow everyone in this book kind of being suspicious of one another. It gives me a lot of like Salem-y vibes, but also this book is filled with so much violence. It says she tries to extract some tiny shred of humanity from these characters and creates a swirling portrait of a damned Mexican village. That's all I know. That's all I know. That's all I know. but I want to know more. I don't know, I'm just a little intimidated by the writing style, I think, but maybe I'll like it once I get into it. So that is Hurricane Season. And then a couple more here. I have a video like this from last year, so if you are like seeing some gaps in the quintessential spooky canon literature that I love to keep adding to year and year and year again, you can check out last year's video on my channel too. But that is The Monk by Matthew Lewis. This is also on my October TBR, hopefully. This is one of the first Gothic novels, not the first, but one of the first, and this follows the depraved, deceitful, cunning, awful monk Ambrosio as he descends into the pits of sin. He relinquishes his monkly ways, and he goes after this young girl or something like that. Yes. And he swiftly abandons his monastic vows. They didn't last long, and he begins a terrible descent into immorality and violence. His appalling fall from grace embraces blasphemy, torture, murder, and places his very soul in jeopardy. Cannot wait. This is exactly what I want to read. I just want to. Finally, this is an audiobook that just came in for me today, and that is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I have been hoarding this ever since it came in one of my Book of the Month boxes. I read The Silent Patient earlier this year by the same author, and I absolutely loved it. This one is quite different, but I'm also a little bit concerned because I really liked The Silent Patient, which is a psychological thriller about a woman who gets sent to an asylum or mental hospital. But with this one, I'm just a little bit concerned because I've heard a lot of 1-star reviews, but also a lot of 5-star reviews. But this one follows a professor at Cambridge? Cambridge? Yes, Cambridge. He teaches Greek tragedy, but when students, or I think it's one student, gets murdered, a niece of another student comes to the school and investigates, because apparently she can do that, and she is convinced that he is the prime suspect murdering students. So yeah, I don't know. All I know is that people say this has an intense twist, and obviously the 1-star people saw it coming and the 5-star people did not. So do you want to, let's find out which one we are, I guess. Oh, it's also dark academia, I guess. So that is another selling point. Selling in my car, so I'm a book salesman. So that is The Maiden. So that is my last book on this year's spooky, huge Halloween recommendations list. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Rex Room. So until the next video, I hope you keep well, I hope you keep spooky, and I will see you very soon. Ciao. Oh, there was actually stuff in there. Oh. I used this for like a snuff box in a different video, and now it's full of chamomile tea, and it's all over the floor.